You're listening to Raising Anchor on 990 WBOB. Welcome to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show with Matt Entrickett and Jason Carey. Your home for news, analysis, and everything Rhode Island FC. Each week, they take you inside the locker room, inside the tactics, and inside the storyline shaping RIFC. Now, here's Matt and Jason.
Rhode Island FC continue to drop points after suffering a 2-1 loss against Miami FC down at Mr. Worldwide Stadium, ending the month of March winless. How does Rhode Island FC change the direction it's on heading into one of the biggest matches of the season this week in Open Cup action against Hartford Athletic? Jason, I thought for sure if we were going to go down and travel to see a match, we'd want a guaranteed win. And oh my goodness, did I get that so completely wrong down there on the weekend. I'm still sounding like RFK Jr. and life is struggling, much like this team. How is it going, my friend?
I mean, all things else considered, going good. The game was not what we wanted it to be. But hey, shout out to Devin Kerr for some fantastic Cuban food recommendations. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's so
Amazing.
funny. I think he felt like he owed it to us after we had tried to steer him clear when we did the clam chat with him last year. I know he gave us some praise on USL All Access. I expected 1 to 2 locations and gave me an itinerary that covered the entire county of Miami-Dade, not just Miami proper. So yes, hats off. It was some of the best food I've had in a long time. But people have already asked what is the reason behind the naming of this show, naming it the Cold Trunk Pizza Show. We had plans to celebrate the victory, to put the denouement on our trip by enjoying some excellent Cuban truck street food, and the wind was out of our sails, and so we relegated ourselves after that loss to eating leftover what was then warm pizza during the tailgate and finishing off the night with cold trunk pizza. So I feel like that's the appropriate title for the show.
Yeah, it kind of felt like the appropriate response there too after that somewhat deflating loss there.
Before we get into the game and us traveling down, want to just do a quick plug and remind everyone that you can help Jason Carey get his Rhode Island FC tattoo by voting for us in the Best of Rhode Island monthly competition. You can vote for us for best podcast in the statewide column. Reminder, if Jason gets, or if we get first place and win that, Jason will go to get his second tattoo, but his first Rhode Island FC tattoo with Tom Butts and the amazing work he's done on a lot of great Rhode Island FC tattoos. So don't do this for yourself. Do this so that you can see Jason get put to the needle and get some Rhode Island FC love. But anyways, got to get back into this. I'm putting the Coach Kano card counter back up on the screen. We have a good question about that a little later in the show. And of course, we will unpack or preview the Hartford Derby coming up as well. But Jason, overall thoughts on the trip itself. I have some ideas of where you might go with this, but I'm curious, just kind of calling this cold card here on you.
I mean, like it was a small sample size. I don't want to too much. Like, the food was really good. The game was kind of disappointing. I was surprised how little Miami FC fans were actually there. There are a few cool ones like diehards who we actually made the trip, and we got to reconnect with them again when we played them last year. They came to visit us. But outside of that, it was just some kids wearing Inter Miami jerseys.
If you had to guess, how many Inter Miami kids did you see at that game?
Like 15 to 20 compared to like maybe 5 Miami FC jerseys.
And for about 200 fans in total at the game?
Yeah. So kind of sad, especially when we made up 10% of them?
We had an entire section, like the far right side was completely dedicated to Rhode Island. Now I think there was probably 20 to 30 of us. Interestingly, there's some players whose families live in Florida, so saw and met some of those as well. Overall, the stadium just felt weird. There was no directions on how to get there. There was no navigation. There was no information on where to park. We could have walked into the stadium for free if we had just gone in right when we had first gotten there. It was just very unorganized. It doesn't feel like a real organization down there. I don't, and one of the fans was like, I don't understand why FIU students don't just go to the games for free to boost attendance. I think you bought just about every single adult beverage that they had in stock on the night. So it was a very interesting thing. I was glad that we got to go. I just don't know how they're going to translate that to 20,000 at Homestead or whatever the amount that they're claiming they're going to be able to fill when they move stadiums.
They're going to have to turn up like a bunch of other different things, like in terms of marketing, and really get their name out there.
Yeah, agreed. But that's enough about the trip. For those of you that are curious, you can absolutely go and fight 25 casuals and 13 people that just think that they have Messi there on that team, but they don't have Messi. They have Alessandra Malesi instead. So fun fact on that. But let's talk about the game itself, how Kano constructed this roster on game day with him not being available to actually manage the game day operations from the sideline as he was serving his red card suspension from I looked all over that stadium, Jason. I looked in every window. I looked in every space. I was hoping I would find him wherever he was tucked away. It was done so from a very secure fashion. So let's talk about how Kano constructed this team.
Yeah, taking a look at this lineup here, Koke Vegas in net with Grant Stoneman, Karifa Yao, Frank Nodarse in the back three there. Nick Scardina out on the right there, Clay Holstad and Ugo Bacharach as those holding midfielders, with Alair Sanchez out on the left, with Augustine Pitti Rodriguez right behind the two strikers of Logan Dorsey and Leo Alfonso. It's pretty close to what we had predicted, with kind of like one exception here. We did kind of make a slip up last week.
We made a slip up.
So we put Joe J in, even though he got called up. To be fair, we always say it was guaranteed to be wrong. Kind of a mistake there on our part. You know, we are a very small crew. You were sick and I was just busy with work, and it just blew right by me, and it was like, oh, whoops.
I just appreciate the fact that I put more time and effort into tracking down Miami's international duty call-ups. I'd even gone and looked to see if Busy, because it was a big deal for Jamaica, who advanced at least to the next round of their knockout qualifiers to earn World Cup qualification. I didn't even think about teams that were not in World Cup contention, because if they're not in the World Cup, like, okay, yeah, sure, friendlies are important. And congratulations to Quazaric. Full credit. He got a goal and an assist for his contributions with Rwanda. But yeah, completely escaped me that our most active international call-up, we didn't even bother to check. So, hey, you missed 1,000 of the shots that you don't take, Michael Scott, something like that. Yeah, you're right. I think the only one we got wrong besides Sanchez was we thought Noah Fuson also might get a start here for both minutes managed. There was a little bit of concern about Augustine Rodriguez coming out. He had a phenomenal game. We'll talk about that in a second. A couple of things to call out. Amadi Diop returns. We had him questionable to out. We hadn't seen him yet. We have not gotten a media day with this team since the home opener, but he makes his USL 2026 season debut in the 64th minute. And then Jamin Peters also makes his championship debut. Obviously, he was in the Open Cup, but he comes in as a second half substitute in the 83rd minute. So a couple of good things there. Really, we've talked about the interchangeability of Sanchez and Quazera all season. Scardina returns to the lineup, so we get our second real look at him starting for the squad. Really, the only variable would have been Logan Dorsey and for JJ Williams on the night. Want to ask you, before we get into that, your heroes and your zeros of the game, so that way we can make sure we cover all of our bases all out the get-go.
I'm going to go with Busy getting his goal. You know, I don't want to say call them out, but it's like, hey, like we maybe had some expectations for him, and we're hoping a little bit more. So for him to come off and make an immediate impact, and even after that, like, I think he had a pretty good, he didn't have a full game right there, but he had a pretty good 30 minutes to end the game there. For my zero, I'm going to say discipline. Right, this is the second game in a row where we've had a player sent off, and just a little bit of concerns there. Maybe some of our players need to, like, cooler heads need to prevail. Right, we can't keep having people missing every week.
Yeah, we'll talk about some of the attack creation and stat lines in a bit. My hero was Clay Holstead. Looked at his individual heat map. The dude was everywhere. The amount of effort he put into the team was easily 50% more than any other player on the squad on the night. And I'm not just talking about his heat map, just his overall presence around the team. Like, it's almost not fair to call him an 8 or a 6. Like, he just, if the ball was somewhere in play, he was somewhere a part of it. And I'd have to say my zero on the night is Hugo Bacharach. It hurts me to say it, but you can't, what are you doing? Like, the red card was very much warranted. You know, he was one of only 2 players that really even received yellow card treatment on the night. I know that the ref, we really don't want to talk about the ref, but it didn't affect the outcome of Rhode Island FC's game. They could have changed the way they were playing to a certain extent. Hugo, you can't do that. You're too tall. You shouldn't be kicking like that. And I don't think it was a surprise to anybody. It didn't even look like it was a surprise to Hugo, for the matter. So he's got to take the L for that. Overall, what did you think of the match itself? You know, both seeing it in person, and I know you watched it on replay either yesterday or today.
Yeah, it was frustrating because it felt like a team that we could go out and get some points again. I think there is maybe a little bit of underestimation going back and doing my rewatch. I was impressed with how defensively organized Miami is, right?
It's not something you expect to say out loud. Obviously, they did a major pivot after last week against Sporting.
Yeah, maybe there's a few caveats to that we'll get here too in a few moments, but you know, because you at the same time you're always like, well, RIFC's been together for a while now too, but this is the first time we've seen some continuity from this Miami FC team. A lot of the team has changed, but they were able to keep the same coach, and I think a lot of what he's been trying to implement is finally starting to like get roots into their like style of play.
I agree. You know, it's weird when you're at the game and maybe you're under a certain level of let's call it influence of other things other than the game day product. It was really interesting to watch from the sidelines because you would see this attack and then it would come to something super close, or it would kind of peter out in the middle of the midfield and die. And there were so many times where the scoreline was dictating the frustration I had in the match. That and the 7 Messi fans heckling us, that it was really hard to like get invested in the game watching it live. The atmosphere, the experience, like you felt like this team was going to get these goals back any second, and then the time continued to progress and it wasn't happening. Even when Busy scored his goal, it was like, okay, is this too little too late? Like at that time there was still plenty of time left in the clock, but like something felt off. And that's like the thing I think summarizes this team so far in these first few matches is like so much is there, but there's one thing off that I can't yet qualify, and it's what's keeping us from seeing a higher table standing at this point. Miami is now in playoff contention for a home playoff berth at Mr. Worldwide Stadium, and we are on life support in the basement. I know it's just 3 games, you know, game week 4 heading into game week 5, but like this is not where Rhode Island FC wanted to be at the start of the season. This was not the momentum Conno Smith had envisioned when he wanted this project to kick off for 26.
Yeah, absolutely not. I really didn't think we were gonna be here after 3 matches.
Yeah, hard to say, but when we return, we're gonna break down what exactly we think went wrong for Rhode Island here on the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. Thank you for listening to tonight's broadcast, powered by Sprout Coworking. For all your business needs, large or small, visit sproutcoworking.com. Powering 990 WBOB, that's sproutcoworking.com.
Now, let's get back to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show on 990 WBOB with Matt Entrican and Jason Carey.
Jason, I can't help but notice that you got something incredibly wrong. And I'm not talking about the Quizera situation, but you got something incredibly wrong in your match day predictions. And then you also got something incredibly right in those same predictions. I wanted to put a video together, but I'm still not 100% catching up from the post-travel, you know, situations. First, the thing you were wrong about, Matthew Ndongo scores a goal, creates something out of nothing, scoring against his former team. It's something that we wish we had seen from him in his time with Rhode Island. Didn't pan out, goes and does it right back to us. It's his 2nd goal now of the championship season. Meanwhile, the thing you did get right, you demanded that Busy announce himself to the championship, get that goal in regular league play. He goes and does that in somewhat of a spectacular way based on some of the stats and some of the things we were reading on when that goal got scored. Listen, what, do I give you flowers? Do I rescind embarrassment? Where do we go here?
Maybe they cancel each other out. I'm 50-50 at that point. You know, you have to give credit to Ndongo, though. That goal kind of came out of nowhere. He created his own kind of space there. You could maybe argue the defenders were a little bit too slow to close him down, but that was a brilliant strike there. Not really much you could see that Koke could have done there. Like you said, I kind of wish we could have seen more from him. We thought that he was brought in to be that next future player, and it looks like he's kind of getting that opportunity right now with Miami. I mean, he's already got 2 league goals this season, so credit to him. It kind of looked like he did a somewhat non-celebration, so maybe
I did notice that
there's some level of respect for his previous team. That we at least got him to a certain extent where he is now. And correct me if I'm wrong, but so far we haven't really had any ex-players do something to that level to us, with outside of maybe Turnbull assist. But even then, it's an assist.
So it's only if the forwards leave us. So when we see Dikwa 2 times this year at a minimum, brace yourself. He got a brace, so just brace yourself.
I'm expecting him to score against us now after what Ndongo did to us. But getting on to Busy's goal, a couple of notes here. I mean, this was his first of 2026 and second of his career for RIFC. Just 50 seconds after coming on from the bench, making it the fastest goal ever scored by a Rhode Island FC substitute. So that's huge. And first ever RIFC player to score less than a minute after coming off the bench. So, I mean, that's very impressive there.
Do you think if Maxi Rodriguez had taken his penalty quicker, that he wouldn't have, if he just ran over to the spot like a pitcher coming in the 9th inning to close the game out? If he had just sprinted over the spot and fired it, could he have held a record that would have never been broken? Because we talked about it in game 1, that that record was almost broken by Logan Dorsey. And then Dwayne Atkinson is like, hey, hold my red stripe. I'm here right now to go and cause some problems for that Maxi Rodriguez legacy.
Possibly. I do kind of remember thinking back to that moment. There's almost this is taking too long. You're going to ice yourself. You almost don't want to think about it too much. But back to Atkinson here now, second player this season and one of 7 RIFC players all time to score less than 5 minutes after coming off the bench. Only player in club history to do so twice after his first career goal came less than 2 minutes after coming on the bench in that 1-0 win against Birmingham FC in the USL Cup quarterfinals last August 20th, 2025.
So he is the epitome of super sub ultimate impact. And if we could get, a tenth of what we saw last year and a tenth of this year, he's good for what? Did you have him down for a goal production of what you estimated, or was when Logan Dorsey came in, we stopped thinking about what Atkinson could provide?
Yeah, I think we kind of pivoted towards Logan Dorsey. I mean, if he can be somewhat like that, there's that time where it felt like Joe Brito would just come off the bench for 20, 30 minutes and maybe not always necessarily score a goal, but make a real impact to a game. I think that could be huge for us.
I think Brito was good for at least 4 goal contributions a season. So we're the realm of 5 to 10. I mean, again, this attack feels like it's all there ready to click, and kind of moving into that. I don't know how I feel about this, because again, on one hand, you could look at it from the results line, only scored 1 goal. It came after we were already down 2 goals on the night to Miami. But again, at the same time, you can look at it as Rhode Island FC had 20 shots on the night. It's the 3rd game in the championship this season where we've had an average of 18 shots. Think in mind, we never got past 17 as a single game day high in 2025. Again, the shots are here. They're not all quality shots, but the shots are coming. We just can't seem to have it. Was this just simply a case that JJ Williams was not made available to us tonight, so the attack wasn't where it needed to be? Or is there something else going on with this team that's preventing us from getting the ball in the back of the net?
I think there's maybe a few things at play here. I think both Bitty and Alfonso both have actually had really good nights, and both of them had really good opportunities that you think on another night maybe they could have scored. At the same time, maybe you could have argued that Felipe Rodriguez kind of stood on his head there and had the game of his life. He had 6 huge saves, and it felt like, was it bad luck or a little bit of him just having the time of his career there with Miami? But we're generating offense, which is good to see. And you think that if we can just turn a few more of those shots into slightly higher quality attacking options, I think this scoreline will kind of like turn on its head. That's the only reason why I'm still slightly hopeful, even though this loss doesn't feel great. We still saw an XG of 1.36 and a team that dominated just about every single metric except tackles. And, of course, the most important one, goals. So I think there's still some hope before I'm going to kind of be too concerned.
Yeah, stealing some of the beautiful graphics that you at USL Stats do, because we just did not have time this week to do our own. I agree with you. I guess when I look at this, there's two things that come out as a glaring disconnect, right? One is we had the lion's share of possession at 60% almost. You look at the heat map coverage of like where the ball control was. We outpaced Miami in final third entries by like 3-1. We outpaced in, again, just about everything, like you said, in those metrics. But like, then look, two things of note that surprised me. Again, so much left-sided attack. Nick Scardina, we did not expand to the wings. We said this in the preview that if you could break Miami out of its defensive shape, you would have them emergency defending. We did not do that on that. We took so much of the attack straight through the vertical central column. I mean, we would maybe go out to the wings in the final third entry, but like we never drew Miami into the wings to start for the overloads and the combines as much as we should have. I don't know yet what Nick Scardina's profile is going to be. I thought this would be a breakthrough night for him. But the other thing, Jason, is comparing this game to the last game, I felt that we had so much more pace and explosiveness in our transition game that it felt like we did not want to take that into Miami. It felt like we were even more so, maybe a little bit more disjointed than what we saw there. Sure, I think we lost the ball more often in terms of possession with Louisville because of their press, but like Miami was always going to set up in the lower block, the mid to low block, and like we need speed to break that back line. Possession build up, slowing down the game. It didn't look that great. And then I don't remember the number. I think we had like 22 cross attempts on the night. You combine that with the fact that we didn't have Williams in the game. It felt like a lot of those crosses were wasted efforts of attack versus bringing it back in, recycling, maybe going for a shot closer to the box. I don't know. I don't think that Dorsey is Williams. I asked you at the game, did you think that those players had similar profiles? I'm kind of starting to think that we shouldn't expect Logan Dorsey to be a type of JJ Williams player.
Yeah, I think it's not 1-to-1, and I think you bring up a good point there with those crosses and no JJ. There were times I remember looking into the box, seeing like you see players like Pitti, who like he's not going to be winning headers there, especially when there are many times Logan Dorsey was for some reason out on the wide sending in crosses. It felt weird in terms of the attack. I know coach previously was complaining about not getting enough crosses into the box, but it feels like you need that context of, well, if JJ Williams is not there to win a cross, maybe we should try something a little different here. And yeah, we would get pushed out wide as we did kind of get further up the field. It felt at time that there was this disconnect from the defense to the midfield to the attack, that they were maybe just too spread apart. And we would try to force things a little bit too much, despite the, large difference that we had in possession and passing stats. But we would, make 1, 2, 3, 4 passes and then just force one and then lose the ball. And Miami was playing kind of very direct, and they would kind of run through our midfield, which you would think with Clay and Ugo there, that really shouldn't have been something we saw in the night.
Is this back down to patience? I wonder if that's going to be one of the key terms. We heard it first at the Open Cup. This team needs to be deliberate and play with patience. Are we, from what I just said a second ago, where they look better at speed because they can bypass defenses, obviously more quickly, but if they can control the ball, like that leads to some of the most promising attack. Does this team need to be more deliberate, more patient with their clinicalness in the passing game as well as their chance creation?
Potentially. I think you also need to be able to recognize situations when you have that ability to, when you catch a team, out of position and you can hit them on speed or count, like you need to just go for it. It's that balance where if it's not there, don't force it. Try and move the ball around, try and break them out of their shape, move it to the wings, like whatever the kind of goal there is on the night, Don't just try and force a counterattack when it doesn't feel like it was working on the night.
So then, final question about this attack: when is Leo Afonso going to break out? He's had an assist now in the season, but a goal needs to come from this guy sooner than later. Led the team on the night, led both teams technically with 7 shots. As of the weekend, he is leading the USL Championship with shots, not necessarily goals. 17 through 3 games. What is the what's the magic formula to see 17 shots equal to X goals? Because right now, like, there's effort there, much more than we saw all of last season. When do these start coming into goals for Leo Afonso?
I imagine we see it within the next couple of matches. It feels like he's very close. I would say the same thing for Pitti. I think he actually had the better chances on the night, and kind of surprised he wasn't able to walk away with a goal to his name.
Yeah, want to quickly switch over to defense, talking about some unfortunate things that you mentioned, the midfield kind of getting routed. Want to talk about the Hugo Red. Notice, did the ref have an impact on this game the way we all may have felt in the moment? Went back, saw the foul accumulation, surprised that Miami had, conceded way more fouls, had way more tackles than us, yet we had the same number of yellow cards. Unfortunately, the damage being the second yellow card and ejection for Hugo Bacharach. It was a red card, not denying that. But like, this is also, Jason, defensively wise, this is the second game in a row where we've given away a second half goal in the starting minutes of the half. Like, what does this team need to do to start locking things down?
Yeah, like with the second half goal, right? I mentioned a little earlier, I think potentially we could have closed them down a little bit earlier. We actually never even really talked about the first one. If you go back and watch it, it almost, like, Koke does really well there, but then it feels like it's slow motion and all the defenders are kind of just standing around waiting for Koke to do something instead of, I don't know, scrambling, trying to, it felt like the reaction speed was a little too slow there. We mentioned similarly in Louisville, that one goal where it just felt like everyone was kind of ball watching when it really mattered. So I don't know if that's an issue that Kano is going to have to address, that they need to be a little bit more alert on defense. When it comes to the ref, I don't say that he made any decisions that really impacted the game. I think ultimately RIFC just didn't do enough on the night to get the win. But I think there's definitely some inconsistency in the fouls that he would call, and I'd see it on both sides on the rewatch. There were some tackles that looked a little rough that he just kind of let by, and other ones felt way too soft. So it's just a little frustrating to see, but I think that's just what you unfortunately expect of pro refs.
We now have dropped 5 points from what should have been winnable games, at least, especially when looking at other teams and the success against these clubs around the league. I've started to ask, is it luck? I've started to ask, is it other things? Do you think there's a sense that this team mentally is just playing at the level of their opponent? Because we've seen high highs in their fight against Louisville, but now we're seeing some frustrating results against teams that these should be beatable matches. There is concern, Jason, amongst the fandom that these results will haunt us later in the season. Is this team possibly playing at the level of their opponent, and do they need to get that out of their heads? Or what else would you say this team is suffering through right now?
It's possible. I think that maybe the reality is there's this shift that's trying to go on, and it's taking a little bit harder or a little bit more time to implement than maybe we would hope for, in terms of going from a team knowing to be incredibly stodgy in defense to a team that's a little more exciting and forward-minded. And we haven't found that right balance yet, where we can't get both of them kind of right at the same time.
Well, we'll have to see what Kano can do to start riding this ship as we get into the next month of the season. Jason, we are now winless in all March competitions in the history of this club. So it is not a fun stat to have to say out loud, but don't go anywhere. When we return, it's the mailbag here on the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. Fans, as the weather becomes more and more unpredictable, be sure to check out 990 WBOB's weather page for all your temperature, storm, and travel info. Stay prepared for whatever Mother Nature has in store with the 990 WBOB weather page.
Now, let's get back to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show on 990 WBOB with Matt Entricket and Jason Carey.
All right. Ben S. here says 3 years, 3 slow starts. What's your guys' guess on why we never find form early on? And even though the team's been together for a while now.
I mean, I want to blame it on we signed a bunch of Southern players and they're not used to the cold climate, but there's so many that have New England roots or New England Revolution connections to Kano that I don't know. It is a bit of a surprise, right? Like you could say, was it the stadium? Was it the having like even in the early parts of the preseason where they don't even get to train at Centerville because it's still too cold or too snowy? Is it the lack of like permanent facilities for training beyond what they do at the Centerville Bank Stadium pitch? I don't know, but like that's a really good point that Ben brings up at the end. This team has been together for such a long period. There's no need to gel anymore. Like this team should be on a better step at the beginning of the season. They should have a leg up on their opponents, especially an expansion team. Like I don't have an. Do you have an answer? Because I don't have an answer.
It's too like you look at we have a very strong spine, right? You look at the back all the way up to the middle. There are players who have been here for a while now at this point, and so for them it should just be like riding a bicycle. They should have just gone through that motions through training and just be like, okay, cool, we're back in it. But it just feels like maybe there's some sort of changes that have gone like tactically that Connell's asking them, and they're just kind of struggling to kind of find that right balance.
Interesting. Steve in the chat says that the team needs a psychologist because they're not having fun and they always seem angry and spend more time yelling in frustration. I think that's a bypass. That's a fact of Kano's coaching style. It seems anger cascades more anger. But we should find out. Someone else actually asked if the team has a chaplain. We should find out the support staff. Obviously, USL championship money isn't infinite, but that's a really good point, Steve. We'll have to check into that. But yeah, this team needs to figure its form out. They need to get running here. Andrew H though has a challenge here. Is 3 games enough to determine a slow start, or is this home draw against the worst team and a loss against a traditional bottom dweller more important than the number of games? So is this quantity or quality?
But because you look at it in the sense that, a traditional bottom dweller who, maybe it's too early maybe to say whether or not they're going to actually be a playoff team, but there's clearly some talent there. And we mentioned it last week that we shouldn't sleep on them. And then a Sporting Jacks who kind of seems all over the place. I think that's a good shout in terms of 2 games where we clearly should have gotten better results and we didn't. But I mean, it takes 2 to tango. Where we are not showing up and taking those opportunities, and we're kind of letting them slip through the cracks.
Makes me wonder if we're playing to the opponent's level. What's this next
Possibly.
question?
Taras says here, we've never won in March and have only 2 wins in 2 seasons in April. Is that a problem? I just want to clarify. We're speaking about league matches. We did beat CD Filans in the Open Cup, but now 3 years, no wins in the regular championship in March.
Yeah. I mean, I think famously we had our first win ever against Las Vegas, away to Las Vegas in April in the first season. I don't know what it is about March. I don't know. Maybe Coach Kano teaches this team to teach its fan base that they need to be made of tougher stuff and punish us for the first half of the year because he's made some pact with, a deity to say like, I will ruin Rhode Islanders' lives for the first 4 months if you give me the best 4 months down the stretch. Maybe I don't know what it is, but we're gonna have to watch the March stat and just hope that April is not going to be a continuation of that. But Jason, looking at the card ahead, I'm not confident we're going to get another win until May. So I mean, outside of the Open Cup, but like Detroit City, that's going to be tough. Lexington, that's going to be tough.
Got Charleston is coming.
Charleston,
up soon.
That's going to be tough. I don't know if we don't see our first win now until Birmingham, because when we said 10 points in the first 5 matches, we meant that with Sporting Jacks and Miami being a part of that equation.
And then like maybe thinking draws against some of the other teams right now at this point. I mean, maybe if we truly play up, maybe we'll see. Maybe
we shall. Bob D writes in, this year's RIFC team could be the world champion limbo contestants. Every time you think they can't sink any lower, they do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you with the frustration. Like I'd echo those sentiments I mentioned earlier, though. I do see some promise in the attack, and I'm willing to give this team a little more time, but it is frustrating for the third year in a row to just kind of see us flounder our way into April. Rachel H says, are the Wave Kits cursed? They are now 2-3-5 in all conference, averaging only 1 point per game.
I don't know if it's the Wave Kit. I don't know. I know a lot of people are starting to say, like, if we're gonna draw or if we're gonna point fingers, it's got to be the Wave Kit. Unfortunately, what do? You can't bring back the Road Kit. It was not submitted for approval, so I don't know. I don't know what to tell you at that point. We just got to get through it and hope that third, community kit, whatever that I've heard rumblings about, actually happens and it comes out very quickly, and the Wave Kit can wave away. I don't know. Brad L writes in, I saw Dave McKay got a yellow. Do we get to add that to Kano's card count?
Good question. I think we could maybe put an asterisk there and add it as, like, coaching staff, but ultimately the thing here was to kind of go after Kano. I don't know if in spirit he got one just to echo the same frustration.
How about this? Whenever we decide what the charity thing will be for the Coach Kano card count, why don't we do this? Why don't we just make an agreement right now that if that one that was missing because of Dave McKay pushes us over the line, we'll add all of the rest of the coaching staff's cards and we'll be fine there. We'll leave it at that.
All right. Eric C here says, when do we start to get worried?
After Wednesday. That's when you start to get worried, is after Wednesday, 1,000 gajillion %.
Okay.
John G, what was your favorite thing to do in Miami since we all know it wasn't being at the game?
Eating all the Cuban food and enjoying some nice weather.
Yeah, warm weather was absolutely amazing. Anything roasted pork was amazing. I wish we had spent more time. And especially for the amount of time. I mean, like, that was the most frustrating thing for me about the whole situation. We went down there thinking we were going to treat ourselves to a win, and then instead, like, the loss kind of contaminated the rest of the trip. I did not think about that, and so we didn't spend enough time off of the soccer stuff to be able to wash that away.
There was another big L of the weekend too. There was a reason we also went down there. There is a brewery that we really like, and we found out that they are in financial trouble and probably shutting down. So it was a weekend of L's.
Yeah, and specifically to that point, the brewery didn't even have any of their beers. They'd already stopped production. They were guest tapping, so we didn't even get anything that we wanted. Anyways, not a Raising Anchor Soccer show, but it was a interesting trip, and I will definitely be more enjoying Tampa Bay as our next Florida travel, or maybe Jacksonville. I don't know, but I'm thinking Tampa Bay will be the next one. Thanks for everyone that writes in. I did remember someone asked me, they don't know how to write in and they don't follow us on socials. So I'm assuming it's some of our new listenership. You can find the show at raisinganchorpodcast.com, and there is a form that you can fill. There's a questions for the show form. So if you want to do that, you can also email us at raisinganchorpodcast@gmail.com if you'd like to do it that way. And then, or of course, our normal socials. We don't post a lot. We're not going to ask you guys for it. If you guys send us stuff, you guys know the routine at this point. So we're going to keep going that way. But when we return, it is El Clamico number 7. Don't go anywhere. It's the Raising Anchor Soccer Show.
Now, let's get back to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show on 990 WBOB with Matt Entrican and Jason Carey.
I'm just kidding, Jason. It's actually El Clamico number 6, but I wanted to just make people go, what? We haven't played that many so far. I mean, technically,
that's kind of what I was doing too.
If you count the preseason dust-ups, we're almost there. Actually, I think we'd be at 8 now. The point is, there's too many of them that have already happened in this short amount of time as these teams have come together. But it's Open Cup magic once again this Wednesday. El Clamico does return, and it's time to take on this Connecticut side once more.
Yeah, it started strong in our favor, but it's been kind of tilting away from us since then. It's now 1 win, 2 draws, and 2 losses. And one of those being a penalty shootout loss in last year's Jägermeister Cup with only 10 men, or against 10 men, I should say, and still on producer Torrin's mind. And I think a lot of us really kind of regret that one, especially because they went on to win it. We play this team a lot. But this time it's the opening version of this El Clamico is going to be probably the most important one. If we kind of think back on the time that we've played them, This is, we don't like to use
Don't
this
say
word
it.
around here, but this is kind of a must-win derby in a sense, right? This is a cup competition. Whoever wins knocks the other out. Every time we've played them before, right? Even in the Jägermeister Cup, we were already going to go through that group. Right?
Yeah, we won the group outright despite the draw.
At that point, we just kind of let them sneak in that kind of like second place spot there. And I know fans would argue that every win against them is a must win, but there are realities of the season, right? It's a point accumulation, yada yada, whatever. But you can't be a draw like there can be in the Jägermeister. This match has to be decided. So this will be the first time we've ever played them with immediate consequences.
To that end, what's the likelihood that we see both of these coaches deploy full strength squads for the game? I mean, it's only round 2 of the Open Cup. There are semi-pro teams still in this tournament come Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah, I think it's pretty close that neither coach can afford to lose this match. So I don't want to say that they're going to play like a full starting 11, but it's going to be very close to it. Whereas opposed to normally you maybe see, like, we're not going to see the lineup we saw on CD Filands, right? There might be a little bit mix of a few players.
You think? Wait. You think that Coach Kano will not play his like absolute best starting 11?
I mean that
Danny Rivera makes a start in this game.
I'm not like
CJ Williams
going
makes
to
a start in
name
this game.
any specific player, but like I'm just like 1 or 2 changes as opposed to like 5 or 6.
Why wouldn't? So well, then what's the ramifications or the gravitas? Because to me, I would disagree. I would say that this is one. It's Hartford. 2, it's your only shot of getting that next game against what will most likely either be the Revolution or I think DC United, one of the 2 teams, because we'll see one of them in the next round if we advance. Kano knows that it's like a double loss if we lose, not only just getting knocked out of Open Cup, that means we'd lose a 3rd game in a row. In addition to, we'd lose to Hartford of all teams. I don't see this being anything other than your starting 11.
But you have a home game against Detroit on the weekend, and you don't have a win for the season.
But this win could galvanize this squad.
It could, but you could also like wear your players out into the ground and injure them. Remember, we've had injury problems this team. I'm not saying he's not going to field a very strong lineup. I'm just saying there's a possibility that it's not going to be like the 11 out of 11 starters. Like it could be 9 or 8 of them. And then you from there, can you get to halftime? Can you get to 60 minutes and keep the game close and then just get 30 minutes of someone? Obviously with red cards, right, you're going to probably see JJ because he didn't play this weekend, right? So you'll get him 2 weeks in this game. And you're going to probably see Ugo Bacharach because he can't play on Saturday. But at the same time, it is a long season, and I know that us fans are frustrated, and Hartford is our rival, and we would choose to win that more than, I mean, also, we all hate Detroit too. Anyway, who am I kidding? But like, we don't have a win in the league in the season, and he's got to kind of, he says he only thinks 1 game at a time, but like, a coach always has to kind of at least be thinking, like, how do I manage the season?
Coach Kano would tell you he's only focused on winning the game right in front of him. And I don't know. I think I disagree with you. I think that right now, Coach knows that there's a level of pressure and expectation from the fan base. There's a level of internal expectation and pressure that they need to go out and have a good showing against a Hartford side that they have not seen success inside Centerville Bank Stadium yet. I don't know, but like,
do you think Brendan Burke fields like his starting 11? I mean, they've started very strong, right? If anything, they could almost think, and also that they've had our number for a while now, he could field like, 60% squad. And
that's his choice. If Brendan Burke wants to give us the B squad in Hartford, even though they're all B squad, I'll take it any day of the week. Looking at Rhode Island right now, though, they are 0-1-2 when going up against other championship caliber teams so far this season. The only result has been against an amateur side. So I don't think they can afford to drop more points, even if this is an Open Cup game. We'll deal with Detroit afterwards. Right now, Hartford remains as one of the 3 unbeaten teams in the Eastern Conference. 2 wins, 2 draws. Now, beyond the rivalry, beyond the optics, Hartford is on a momentum that is the complete opposite of where we are. So this could be a statement win on turning the trajectory for Rhode Island. I think this is actually more significantly important than Detroit on the weekend. Because right now, this is all fans care about. We'll deal with Detroit on Saturday, but More importantly, this is what they want to see right now. You do not think there's that much on the line when we are winless and our rivals are undefeated going into this game?
If we can't pick up points against Detroit, I'm not against it, but if we can't pick up Detroit, like points against Detroit, this team is not going to make a home playoff spot. We've already like fell flat on our face. Circling this back to Hartford, though, like I'd say that while they have started very strong, I think you could argue that there's a bit of inflation, and that's not to say that they are not still a strong team, but you look at the teams that they've played, two expansion sides, Brooklyn, Sporting Jacks, who we should have won, and we've seen other teams kind of already punk them to a certain extent. And then they looked pretty anemic against Birmingham. That was a bad game. And then
it was brunch time. No one knows how to play at brunch.
Yeah, which weird, such a weird match. And then there's the Indy 11 one where there was an own goal in the 89th minute to kind of keep them undefeated. So they almost didn't make it out of there. So obviously we're not flying high, but at the same time that this is going to be a derby match, so you know that RIFC is going to be up for the occasion.
I mean, I agree. Rhode Island did not secure their points against Sporting Jacks. Hartford found success. Miami FC has found success against them. There's a reason those teams are at the top of the table. Getting into this game, though, if you're Kano, how do you fix the ship on this Wednesday game so that it doesn't take on any more water?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some discipline concerns here, and I think that'll be on both sides, right? Adrian Diz and Beverly Makingala from Hartford have had some issues. We know what Siaha did here last time. I think it's really important that Rhode Island rises above their rage bait, if you will, and don't let them get under our skin, play our game, and kind of really go for it. Like tactically, we've seen that this team is kind of a lot more offensive than they were last year in terms of taking shots, right? We're averaging like 15-ish, if not
18,
more, 18
shots right now.
Last year we couldn't. There were games where we had 9 shots in the entire game and only 2 of them were on target. I mean, Hartford leads the league in most defensive actions per 90, second highest in clean sheets, but they don't really want the ball, right? They are 24th out of 25th in terms of possession. And then in terms of passing stats, they're like 23rd or 22nd. So they want to play fast and direct.
Okay, but Rhode Island's not known for breaking low blocks. We talked about that earlier. Unless it's at full speed on counter or they're in really good transition. Does that mean we're getting back to Kano ball where it's a lot of side-to-side passing then?
It's possible. And that means then when we do take those chances, we're going to need to be clinical. Hartford does give up at least 2 chances per game. And in terms of like, they don't actually create more than their opponent with the exception of that Sporting Jacks game. So they're going to probably, rely on a very few opportunities to get a goal against us. So we're going to need to create quite a few if we're going to want to come out on top of this.
What are the key takeaways? What does Rhode Island need to do to win this Open Cup round?
I think they're going to need to be clinical with their shots. We've talked about, right, out of those 20 shots, can you get 10 of them or something on target where you can then convert 2 or 3 of those? I think that's really going to be our only opportunity on top of the fact, like I mentioned, cooler heads need to prevail.
And I think that's what I've got too, is these two teams, there's probably going to be more cards than goals in this match. I would not be surprised if there's additional red card ejections just based on the history these clubs have and knowing how much at stake. Scorelines predict that Rhode Island FC will win this 56%, 44 to Hartford because it can't be a draw. How important is the win and Centerville Bank Stadium becoming a fortress against Hartford and be starting to show results at home to the fans, but also to the team itself?
I think it's massive. This really is a must-win game. I know I was arguing about balancing your players, but that's more of coach needing to trust the players that he has. But I think this could spark the rest of the derbies throughout the season and kind of maybe really help us turn the tides, if we will, back in our favor.
Agreed. This game has so much more than just the table stakes of the night. This is the momentum. This is the trend setter for what the derby can be for the 2026 campaign. As a reminder, the Open Cup match against Hartford Athletic is on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Season ticket members, this is your free game that you got as your 18th game. So make sure to do all the things you got to do about that. It is a $4 beer and $1 kid beverage night, so make sure that you plan accordingly for that. And then despite the warmer weather, it looks like there could be a bit of wind, so dress accordingly, check your weather apps before you go to the game. Parking lots open at 5 p.m., and if you can't make the weeknight game, you can catch the action on Paramount Plus. Jason, my voice is gone once again. Get us out of here.
All right, guys, thanks for joining us. Always, it's been a great time. Anchors up.
Anchors up.
You've been listening to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. You can follow the show on Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok at RIFC Podcast and at Raising Anchor on Instagram. And be sure to check out and subscribe to Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you listen by searching for Raising Anchor. Make sure to check out all of our coverage over at the Blazing Musket for all your New England soccer coverage, including RIFC news at theblazingmusket.com. Fans, we thank you for listening. We ask you to be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the show. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm your main man, Juju, and on behalf of the Raising Anchor crew, goodbye for now. And as always, we are Rhode Island FC.